And the person in the booth gives me the thumbs up. Okay, good. We're recording this session since it's the last one, and I know some people are just hearing about this, so I'm going to give everybody a fair chance. But I'm really glad you're here today, so thank you. My name is Rebecca Silver. I know some of you, but not most of you. I'm the assistant director here at the Entrepreneurial Institute. And as I'm going through the presentation today, where I'm talking about these two summer accelerator programs, feel free to ask questions. I'm going to ask, if that's the case, that you grab the microphone. So I'll put that up here. And that way we can record your questions and things as well. It'll just go out to other students who are interested in the programs. So today, hopefully you're interested in one info session or another. Did anybody sign up to do the info session that was on the snow day? Yep. A couple of you? Great. So I'm glad we got to catch you. So basically, for the first time ever, at NYU, we're offering two different summer accelerator opportunities. In the past, we had just had our 10-week-long summer Launchpad accelerator, primarily for graduating students. And we've seen a lot more interest from current students towards working on some of their ventures, too. So we're starting to offer a sprint, a 2-week-long sprint, during the summer as well, primarily for students that are a little bit earlier on in their journey and who are going to be continuing on to pursue their studies in one area or another. So I'm going to go into the details. First, give you a high-level overview of the two different program opportunities, and then go into the details about each of the programs, what we're looking for each, and how to apply. So the Summer Startup Sprint is a 2 to 3 week summer intensive for current students and postdocs. So if one of you is one of the people that's a part of your team is currently here and continuing on till at least the fall, this is a program that might be of interest to you. It's really for people that have an idea and are looking to test the value of that idea. That can be at various different stages, but can be pretty early on. You can apply with just an idea. You can apply with an idea and a prototype in a bit more rigor, but it's fairly loose in terms of the range of how far you have to be to participate in the program. It's the second sprint we've offered. We offered a first version of this in January for 2 weeks for the J-term, we call it the J-term Startup Sprint, and now we're offering this second one during the summer. And just for reference, I don't know if this is relevant to anybody here, but we'll be doing another week-long one that's designed for faculty and postdocs right before the beginning of the school year as well. So just to give you some basic statistics on who was in the January cohort, we had for that one 13 teams, and we had 68% of the people that were participating were female founders, which was awesome. So we do have a slight preference for women in STEM for this particular program. We had, over the course of the 2-week period, the 13 teams completed a total of 659 interviews with potential customers, which is a lot. That's 52 per team. So they really worked hard and hustled, and that gives you a good indication of the level of work that it takes to do something like this. For that reason, we require that participants are participating as part of a team. It's too much work for one person to do what's required. But this is a good opportunity if you are finding somebody that you think you might want to work with on your startup venture to kind of test that out in a short period of time and see if that might be a good fit. So during that period, the various teams also did office hours, a ton of them, about 120 different sessions with us. We had 6 expert workshops where we brought in different people from the New York City ecosystem to give advanced skills training in different topics. And each one of these teams also developed a ton of different hypotheses that they were testing through the interviews. And we like to celebrate more of the invalidated hypotheses than the validated ones, because it means that you didn't spend the next 3 months or 6 months chasing down something that turned out to be not worth chasing down. There wasn't a there. And then there's the Summer Launchpad program. So this is a 9-week-long program. It's an accelerator program to help graduating students primarily and postdoc teams launch and be able to scale their venture. So it's for teams that are a bit farther along, and I'll go into the details of what that means, that do have a proof of concept or prototype already in place, that have their team in place, and have done quite a bit of customer discovery or are at a point where they're ready to kind of grow and launch and scale and do this full time. We've run this program for about 6 years, and we've had 40-some teams participate in this. So this will be the 6th year. So some of the teams, and they've really come from all different sectors and schools. Apparently most of their logos happen to be in turquoise and blue is the only common theme as I'm looking at it. But aside from that, they've gone on. If the metric for success, and this isn't necessarily how we look at all metrics for startups, but is going on to participate in running successful Kickstarter campaigns and getting large grants from the government, so the SBIR and STTR grants, from going into later stage accelerators like Techstars, or from raising venture funding, then they've done really well. So you can see just some of the programs that a number of the participants have gone on to participate in, or the organizations that they've gone on to raise funding from here on the right. So this could potentially be you in a year or two. And the reason why we do both of these programs, and if any of you have been to a presentation by the executive director here, Frank Romalovsky, this statistic might seem a little bit familiar to you, which is that the reality is when you're building a startup, it's hard. And there's a lot of things you just don't know how to do. And for that reason, 75% of startups fail. 75% of teams that go on to raise venture capital fail, which is pretty startling, because you'd think, it's not even just people with ideas. It's people that have had some validation through people putting investment into them. So why do you guys think so many startups fail? And if you've seen this presentation, you're not allowed to comment, but what do you think? What's that? Lack of determination to see it through, maybe? Yeah, we create something that nobody wants. Any other ideas? So sometimes there's a little bit of buyer's remorse, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, between the team lead startup, because they have life happens, children, work, and it's like just too much pressure to...
Yep, so maybe some team issues, or the team falls apart, or personal issues.
Like, for how long can you just start up which doesn't generate any...
Yep, how long can you, I'm just repeating what you're saying so that they can catch it on the microphone. I'm not normally a person that repeats everything everybody says. Yes, so you can't sustain yourself with running on fumes from funding for a very long period of time. So those are all pretty valid reasons. So from our friend Steve Blank here says, more startups that he's seen, he's coached thousands of them at this point, more startups fail from a lack of customers than from a failure of product development. So it's not the product that is really the determining factor in the success or failure and whether that works. It's whether anybody wants it and whether there's a market for it. And certainly there's definitely other reasons too. So our friends at CB Insights have made an attempt to quantify this, looking at thousands of potential companies and doing some surveys on the same ones that had raised venture funding and then failed. And you'll see that 42% state that they failed because there was no market need, which is pretty crazy, right? So we made something, we raised a bunch of capital, we got a lot of people excited about this, we built a team, we put a year or 2 or 3 into it, and then it turned out that there wasn't a market for it, that nobody wanted it in the first place. And if you see the second line item there, it's ran out of cash, which really means what? Nobody bought the thing. We couldn't make revenue. We couldn't sustain ourselves, or we couldn't demonstrate that we were acquiring customers enough to be able to generate or raise more outside funding, right? And certainly there's other very valid reasons too, like the team didn't work or something dissipated on the team as a number 3. So yeah, so 42% are failing for this reason, and we're here to help reduce the mortality rate of your startups. And if you've come to a number of the workshops and lectures that we provide here, or come to coaching sessions, then hopefully we've been able to help you do that in some way, shape, or form. And if not, then maybe this can be a first opportunity to engage with us so that we can help you be in the 25% of startups that succeed and not the 75% that fail. Or if you are in those the 75% that fail, that you learn that really quick and you can start working on a new potential concept or invention or idea. So what this is all about is not, it's about getting customer feedback before you fully develop your concept for your product. About launching products customers actually want, shockingly, versus things you think they might want. Quickly and cheaply as you can at first, to be able to demonstrate that there's a market need. And we have an approach that favors a lot of customer feedback over intuition, experimentation over a ton of elaborate planning and then trying to go for a moonshot, and iterative design over sequential design. So if this sounds like an approach that would be appealing to you, or like something that you would want to learn how to do, then one of these opportunities might be a good fit for you. So we use a model to be able to guide you through this process called customer development, where it takes you through various different steps, and it looks like this is a fairly linear process. It isn't really that linear. You can kind of jump around a bit, but fundamentally, where you're starting is by starting out with just a bunch of assumptions and guesses about your potential venture, about your potential concept or the product or the solution that you're building. And then you're using a process of customer discovery to be able to talk to the potential people who might be interested in using and purchasing and partnering with you to develop this concept or this product or this service, and trying to turn all your hypotheses about these things into facts. So through this process of customer discovery, you'll then be going to validate the potential concept that you have to make sure that you really understand the problem you're solving and that the solution you have solves that problem. And that over time, it's only when you get those two pieces in place that you can start to think about getting and creating customers and actually executing. So you're not immediately jumping into execution mode and starting to build something once you have an idea. You really do have to get that early market validation and put that up front in front of a lot of the product development, or at least in parallel, depending on what you're creating. So the Summer Startup Sprint, to go over this in a little bit more detail, runs from May 30th to June 8th. There's an optional third week, which will be basically June 11th through June 15th. And that will mean that program will run in evenings during that last week, and you'll get for that additional funding and additional mentorship and coaching. So it's a great opportunity to have more resources on top of the first 2 weeks. So you can apply to either or both programs.
And it's just Monday through Friday? Or is
Yes.
it the weekend?
Monday through Friday, but you can expect that it's likely you'll have some work that you'll want to continue to do over the weekends, but we don't have any structured programming over the weekend. I'll go over that in a second. So if you can hold your comments on that, then I'll come to a slide where I have the details. Otherwise, I'll misquote what the hours are. Yeah. So it's designed for current students, or at least people, or at least teams where one member of your team is a current student going on to the next year. So one of you could have graduated, or you could be working with somebody that has a full-time, a job elsewhere, and it's just taking off for being able to participate in the program. That ideally you're graduating in the fall or after that point in time. And they can be at any stage of development in your cycle. Just be serious about your concept, in love with the problem that you want to solve. So looking at this sort of chart, if this is a vague timeline of how far along you might be in your discovery, then it's definitely in the earlier parts of this to help you figure out how to validate whether or not the idea that you have really solves the problem that you think it solves, and that you have the right potential target customer segment as well. So in this sprint, we use this tool, the Business Model Canvas. Does this look familiar to anybody? Cool. So I'll go over it for those that it doesn't. But essentially, we use this as a scorecard to be able to look and build assumptions about and hypotheses about what you believe some of the most critical aspects of your business are. So what value are you potentially providing to customers? Who is your initial target customer segment? How are you going to make money? How are you going to generate revenue? What are your costs and other things like that? And through the process, you'll start to formulate hypotheses or guesses in each of these buckets and prioritize and figure out which ones of these things are the most critical to be able to validate with potential customers or users. And then over that time, sort of systematically through this process of doing a ton of interviews and experiments with individuals that you think might be your customer or your partners, then you'll go to them and be able to fill out different elements of these and try to turn these different hypotheses into facts. So, or cross them out if they're wrong and adjust them. If you have a multiple-sided market, or you're trying to potentially solve a social venture where you have funding from one place and you're serving a need for another type of consumer, then you'd have to do this for both sides of that market as well. So does that make sense? Does everybody know what a double-sided market kind of is? So think of Google. So Google has two different, they're kind of a canonical example of a double-sided market. So who are the potential sides of that market with Google?
You have your advertisement, revenue source, generating source, and then you have your users who Google things.
Users who Google things, yes. So users who search for stuff, and then you have the advertisers. And notice if this is Google's model, only one side of that pays. In some cases, like with Airbnb, there's a double-sided market with hosts and people renters. In that case, both sides pay. So it just depends on the model, yeah. And a lot of social ventures, healthcare ventures, somebody pays and somebody else is actually the beneficiary. Exactly. So as you're going through this process and you're trying to figure out and validate these different hypotheses, the reality is that through some systematic research that's been done through different programs and things that we use to track these assumptions, more than half of your hypotheses are going to be wrong, but you just don't know which ones. So in fact, the numbers are worse than that. It's actually about 60% of the hypotheses that you'll generate are wrong. So, and any one of those incorrect hypotheses has the ability to tank your business if you're not conscientious about understanding the magnitude of how big of an issue it will be. So we use a process where you're taking these hypotheses and building from there, designing experiments to be able to validate or invalidate the hypotheses or learn more to be able to answer that question. So mostly these experiments during the sprint will take the form of doing customer interviews. During Summer Launchpad, these types of experiments may actually be experiments or maybe small tests or different things that you'll start to prototype and build around. You'll run the tests, you'll synthesize the insights, and you'll start to refine different aspects of your business models. You turn the various different hypotheses in your business to facts, or invalidate them and cross them out entirely. So during the sprint, you can expect to do a lot. You can expect to continuously develop hypotheses and establish these and try to figure out which things are the most relevant, which are the riskiest assumptions about your business. You'll test these hypotheses by talking to at least 40 customers during the process. And note, during the January sprint, they did 52 interviews on average per team. So that's a lot. So it's a lot of work. And it's really well worth it because the amount of information that you learn from your customers can be amazing. So you might be the smartest person you've ever met. And maybe you're the smartest person I've ever met, but there's no way you're smarter than the collective wisdom of all of your customers and all the knowledge that's out there. And that's what this goal is, for you to be able to harness the knowledge of the collective intelligence of the customers and the partners that you might want to be working with. You'll run a ton of experiments. And again, usually that'll be through conversation, but also some actual other types of experiments as well, and do some light prototyping on your solution. You'll dive into each aspect of the business model canvas to sort of understand at least the basics for how to develop strong hypotheses in those areas and start to validate or invalidate the riskiest assumptions within each one of those sections. And through this process, you'll present every other day to myself and the teaching and coaching team. There's about 7 of us or so that you'll be meeting with very, very frequently to get some very candid feedback. We call it radical candor, which lives somewhere at the intersection of love and really, aggressive feedback. And you'll get feedback from us, the mentors, from other coaches and outside mentors you'll be paired with and meeting with as well. Each team will be paired with an outside mentor that we think would be a good fit for you too, to help you to continue to grow your venture and take it forward. So through this process, yeah?
So you mentioned that you look for startups that are of all stages for the sprint.
That's right, all stages, yep.
So how do you...
But it's typically a little earlier on.
A little earlier.
Yep.
Okay. So if at all, do you flex exactly what each startup is doing if one is a little bit further along or a little bit earlier?
During the week, it's more structured than, because it's only a week, it's only 8 days of programming. So there's not a ton of flex. The way that you're going to ask questions and the level of sophistication around your questions, if you're farther along, is going to be richer than if you're really starting out and starting from scratch. So the way that you're going to get feedback will be different, but it won't necessarily be that you'll still be focusing on different aspects of the business model canvas for this particular program, for the sprints. Not for Summer Launchpad, but for the sprints, that's right. But you'll be getting feedback in different ways, in different cohorts, depending on how far along you are. So the feedback will be tailored to that a little bit, knowing that different startups will be at slightly different stages. Yeah. So during this process, again, you're going to go out and really try to understand your customer, empathize with them, and walk in their shoes. You'll build a ton of startup skills, so there will be a good portion of this that will be us talking to you too, and you presenting and talking to us and teaching lessons, in fact, too, on these different aspects. And you'll get coaching on your venture as well, so you'll have sort of required office hours every couple days, and then optional office hours every other day. And during the sprint, if you participate in the 2-week sprint, you'll get a $350 stipend that goes towards expense reimbursement for your prototype or for doing customer discovery. So if you wanted to go to a conference or you had to travel somewhere or buy some subway passes to be able to do some discovery, that sort of thing, or building out your prototype would be reimbursed. And you're then eligible also for $1,500 in follow-on funding to further develop your concept. If you continue on to the 3rd week, if you participate then, the structure changes a bit, and we offer you $700 to start, and then an option for up to $3,000 in follow-on funding as well. And then in addition to that, you also get $5,000 in Amazon Web Services credits and some additional and some free legal advice and coaching from McCarter & English, our legal partner for the program, as well as lunch and breakfast for the days that we are in session, so not every day, but many, and as much free coffee as you can drink from the downstairs machine. So a little bit about the schedule, and then you can really see the nuance. And I'll be sending this presentation too, so you don't have to furiously write down notes. But basically, we'll have a little bit of pre-work, almost all on your own. We'll have a short orientation session, which is mostly just getting to know you and having each of the teams get to know each other. One of the biggest values of these programs is that they offer a bit of a community for you as you're starting to build your venture. It's helpful to have peers that are going through the same thing at the same time, but working on slightly different concepts and who have different skill sets than you do. So it's no longer you and your co-founder working together, but you and your network of peers that are going through the same process, helping each other. And we see a lot of that. So for that reason, we're going to front load by holding a happy hour for you guys, for everybody that's accepted for the program. And then we'll want to have you do a little bit of prep work, which mostly entails doing some reading, and not a huge amount, but some reading, a few articles and such, and then setting up some of these potential interviews. As you imagine, setting up for the interviews, if you start on the first day of the program, you might not hear back from some people for a week or two, especially if you're pursuing a concept that's more business to business, then it takes longer to get on people's calendars. So it's just a lot of emailing and scheduling, potentially, trying to figure out how to make sure that you're completing the approximately 5 interviews per day as a team. And then we kick it off, and you can expect that for the first week, you'll be here physically, you'll be here every day. Or pretty much for the first 8 days, you'll be here every day, but you'll be mostly here in the mornings, and then you'll be doing your customer discovery, building out and prototyping what you're doing in the afternoons, and then reporting back the following day, and so on and so forth. So it's a very rigorous schedule. We'll have presentations where you're presenting to us, so kind of flipped classroom style, and office hours frequently, and then we'll have workshops and other activities. We'll bring in a couple of people from the outside who will talk to you about some core skills that we think are really useful for this stage in your venture. And then for the optional 3rd week, the time shifts a little bit, as does the location. So now it'll be held at Brooklyn, at the Tandon campus over at Magnet, if anybody's been there. So you'll get the run of that place. And the workshops will shift in the time, so it'll be more of an after-work schedule, 5 to 7, with mentor hours and you'll do a lessons learned presentation, finally, for that. So for this, what we're looking for is 2 or more people that can participate in this full-time. It is too much work for one person, so that's a non-starter, unfortunately. It's not really possible to complete the level of rigor by yourself on this for this particular activity. We want you to be not so much in love with your solution or technology, but really in love with the problem you're trying to solve. So if that sounds like, if you've got a rich problem area and you're really open to thinking about varied ways to solve it, or maybe you have some super expertise in an area you think could be applicable to solve it, this program could be for you. Hopefully you're looking to learn as well. Certainly from us, that's expected if I'm standing up here and lecturing to you, but most of this won't be lecture, by the way, but more so from your customers. So are you able to synthesize the information you're getting back from them and turn those things into insights and then turn that around and build what you're learning into the fabric of your business and your solution and your prototype as well. And for that reason, you have to be seeking their input too and open to the process of seeking input from outside perspectives. And it's okay to be uncomfortable with this stuff to start. We'll kind of teach you how to do it. I promise after you do the first 10, it gets pretty easy. The first 10 are terrifying, and then after 10, you can call anybody and ask any question you want. But it does take practice, and we do this together as a group. And because you have to get up here and present too, so too you also get really comfortable presenting in front of people. So it's a really good confidence builder in that kind of way as well. And that we want to see that you're capable of building and executing. But for this program, you don't necessarily have to have a full team built out. I mean, we want to see that you have the core founding members, but it doesn't necessarily, but you could be still looking to have somebody join your team if you don't have the full team. If you think you might need to add later a certain type of back-end web developer, it's okay if that person's not part of your team at this point. And you're looking to build a business. So, or you think you've developed a project concept or a prototype or something that you think could be a business, and you are interested in exploring what that could be, or you overtly are really interested in building a business. So it's not just a project for project's sake or a prototype for prototype's sake. It is thinking about this as a business. And that hopefully you're graduating in 2018 fall or 2019 or later, at least one member of your team. We also have a preference for teams with at least one female founder. So all things being equal, then we've got a preference for teams with at least one female founder for this particular program. So yay for girls. And that you're all in. You're able to participate during all of the program that's offered. It's a pretty short program, so you really can't miss much in that period of time and be able to really absorb the full value of it. Or if you have another part-time job or anything else, it's pretty hard to do. I can tell you from the sprints that we did in January, people range from working on this between 50 hours and 100 hours a week. So if you can, good luck to you. If you can try to figure something else out beyond that, it's not really possible. So that's a bit about this program. And then for the Summer Launchpad, this is a sort of a natural tie-in for teams that are a little bit later along and have been working with us in a longer period of time, typically. So this program runs from June 11th to August 10th. And it's designed more for graduating students that are that have just graduated in 2017 or are planning to graduate in 2018. So if you're graduating in the fall, you get a pick of which program you get to apply for, and are ready to potentially launch their venture full time. So it really is designed as a program to bridge and help you do that, to be able to test if you can, and to test and help you get your legs in front of you, help you build a runway for yourself as you want to build and grow this full time. We want to make sure that teams that are participating in this program have at least a strong proof of concept and prototype. For the sprint program, you don't have to apply with a proof of concept or prototype. For this one, you absolutely do. And that you've demonstrated already that you've done some customer discovery and worked with potential customers to be able to validate the need for this. Not that you're fully there, but that you've done some of that initial discovery and reached what we call problem solution fit. So you've identified and clearly understand the problem you're solving, and you have a solution that you are able to demonstrate meets that problem and solves it. It's also to note that if you haven't participated in our previous sprint, and I don't think anybody in this room or nobody in this room has, then we'll also likely ask you to participate in the sprint portion, in basically the startup sprint, in advance of participating in the Summer Launchpad program, to give you some of the canonical method so we can have a common language to be able to communicate with each other. If that's the case, so in other words, we'll have some teams that are participating in the sprint from Summer Launchpad and some that are participating that are just doing the sprint itself. Just so you guys know, just because we know you'll be at quite different stages, all the feedback sessions will be delivered totally separately, so we'll be able to focus on the various stages of your venture. So you'll get a few different types of resources and feedback. And you also get some additional funding for participating in the sprint ahead of time, because we recognize it's going to take more of your time and more of your effort as well, but we think it'll be valuable for us to be able to, you to be able to refine some of those upfront elements of your business in a short time frame before starting on this 9-week journey. So this, for teams here, we expect that they'll be actually in the mode where they're thinking about validating the concept. So they should have a problem-solution fit, but it's time to put your potential solution in the hands of customers and to be able to figure out how you're going to meet them, what types of relationships you're going to have with them, and start to be able to actually think about acquiring some of these customers as well. So it's a bit farther along, again, than what we're focusing on for the sprint, or quite a bit farther along. So during Summer Launchpad or SLP, you can expect to establish strong milestones for your particular business that are unique to you and the venture you're creating and the team you have, and some metrics and things to help you demonstrate progress, and for us to be able to help you achieve those goals as much as we can, give you coaching and guidance and resources to do that. You'll run a lot of iterative experiments. Sometimes, yes, that will still be talking to people, but often it'll be running small prototypes and tests and market tests and things like that to be able to, do growth hacking and a number of other things that'll help you to be able to scale and grow your venture and get to the next step, reach your milestones. You'll expect to refine each aspect of your business model. So wherever you feel as though you've honed in, great, but there will be a lot of chances are all of you will have some aspect of your business which still needs quite a bit of refinement, and we'll focus on those elements to make sure you're in a very strong position, hopefully, by the time you leave the program, or you're in a position to be in a strong position, at the very least. And you'll learn some advanced skills in customer acquisition, business operations, financial skills, and things like that as well through regular workshops from experts that will come in and teach slightly more advanced workshops than you might get in a startup school. So you'll expect also to continue to present weekly to both our team and also to some outside experts and mentors that'll be sort of your dedicated go-to group of experts in this space. I'll talk a bit about that in a second. And to be able to get a lot of feedback from them along the way. So for mentorship, in this program in particular, we have a large group of mentors that you as a team will get to decide to work with over the time. So this is just a sampling, or these are some of the mentors that we had from last year. The ones in purple are NYU alum. The other ones are just benevolent souls who've donated their time to working with startup ventures. So this is the roster of startup or of advisors changes every single year depending on the needs of the teams and also on their availability, of course, too. But broadly speaking, we try to pair each team with a set of mentors who we think will help them the most, which is a younger entrepreneur, typically an alumni from NYU, a fairly recent alum startup who's working on a venture and kind of is a year or so ahead of you and can give you some guidance on how to get there and help you work through some of the painful process as you might experience it along the way. With a more experienced mentor, so somebody who's been a mentor who's been an entrepreneur for at least 8 years or so and has sort of been around the block a number of times, is farther ahead and can help you figure out what your strategy is to move forward. And then also somebody who is an expert from the fundraising and venture side too. So each team will get at least combination of these three individuals, as well as potentially being paired with another subject matter expert, depending on what you're working on. You might need a particular expert in a domain space or something else as well. So if we don't have those people here, then we will source them and find them for you, and it's sort of a peer-to-peer matching. So you'll meet them, they'll meet you, you'll date, and you'll decide who are going to be your mentors for the summer. You'll also get to spend a lot of time prototyping your invention, maybe the longer-term actual solution or what you're providing, but also through small prototypes and things and these experiments, like as we talked about. So of course you'll get access to our tiny little, very, very functional tiny prototyping space downstairs, but also to the makerspace at Tandon. If you participate, you'll still get access to that as well. And then you'll work and we'll be offering these different workshops and things on various skills that it takes to build a startup. Everything from raising venture capital and various skills in running a business operations and accounting, to financial, various things for financial management, managing your cash flows, B2B sales, and other things like that. So we're still finalizing the curriculum. Partly we want to see who applies, and so what's going to be the right set of skills for this particular group. So we can make sure that we're building out the best curriculum for your particular cohort if you participate in this program. You'll also get to talk with founders. We bring in founders from across the New York City ecosystem and often from farther away who talk about their stories and how they got started up. So every Wednesday they come in, we get beer and snacks, and we sit in here, and you can ask them any question you want. No cameras, no phones, so you can be rest assured it's a pretty candid conversation. We learn very interesting things about people. So we had founders last year from these companies, so we had Jason Finger, who's an NYU Stern and law alum, came in and talked about Seamless. We had the managing director of Union Square Ventures, Fred Wilson, and a whole host of other people. So this year you can expect to see some of the same people and a changing roster of some new people too, depending on who's in town, who we can get, and who we want to bring in. But it's really fun and neat to be able to access these people in a really small setting where you can be able to converse with them one-on-one and hopefully form some good lasting relationships with some of these people too. And of course, there's some grant funding that you get too. So you get $10,000. It's in a grant to your company. You can use the money for whatever you want. So if you want to use it to prototype out what you're doing, great. If you want to use it to pay your rent, great. We don't care. It's for you. It's for your venture, and you can spend it on whatever you wish. If you also participate in the sprint, then you get an additional $350 plus an option for $150 additional, or for $1,500 additionally for that extra time.
Did you mention that it was necessary to have a prototype before you even made it to the Launchpad?
Yes.
So you wouldn't technically be able to use the grant money to build a prototype?
Oh, you can if you build a second version of it or iteration. So, because prototyping is iterative, so you might have version 1 or have done research, with one part of it, but you haven't necessarily finished it. So it just depends on where you are. It's unlikely you'd have something completely finished and market ready coming in. You may, which great, kudos to you. In which case you can spend it on rent and other things as well. But if you don't, then it's really up to you. You're managing. This money goes to your venture, and you get to determine how it can best be used to be able to help your venture. You also get $15,000 in various perks. So that includes $10,000 from Amazon Web Services, $5,000 in legal advice and coaching and legal advice and accounting services from Eisner Amper and McCarter and English, banking from Silicon Valley Bank, and a whole host of other discounts and things like that too from various partners. You also get access to office hours with some of the later stage accelerators like Techstars. You bring them in, they meet with your team one-on-one. You get to see who they are and vice versa. We'll let you and make sure that we make introductions to various different incubators and things. We want every team that really works hard for this and is ready to take the next step to have a safe landing pad to be able to continue to work on their venture after they finish the program. So all of that is in kind to you. And again, just to clarify, we take zero equity in any of this, so it's just for you, and you can use it towards your venture, and no strings attached. What we'll ask you to do in return is to write us a blog post, and maybe if you become rich, to donate a few $1,000s back to us at some point in the future. But you're under no obligation to do so. So the program schedule for this, so you may be participating in the sprint. Similarly, we just scheduled the last week in April, we'll do an orientation where we'll go over how to get legally incorporated and what that looks like and give you a head start on that. In order to get the funding, you have to have already incorporated. So we want to do that before you leave the campus, so a good month and a half before the program starts, so that you can get that process going and give you the money. So we'll ask that you come in. We'll also do a happy hour, and you'll get to meet each other and the other accepted teams. You'll do some prep work probably in advance, or hopefully you're working on your startup as well. So you can expect to do a little bit, but not too much between now and then. It's up to you. And then you'll come in basically for some office hours and things, so we can help you work on the milestones you want to achieve for the program and set you up right, and make sure the mentors and people that may be giving you some guidance can also hear those things, so that you can best choose each other and who might be a good fit. And then if you haven't participated in the sprint, we'll likely ask that you do that first and go through that program. And then we'll have a kickoff week. And the first week will be pretty intense. We'll be working together quite a bit. And then afterwards, we'll settle into a regular kind of structure where you'll be in here basically on Wednesdays. You'll be here pretty much all day. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays, you'll be here in the mornings. And then the rest of the time is for you to be able to work on your venture and accomplish what you need to be able to do. You, of course, have the space to do it, but you're not obligated to always be here necessarily during those times, so long as you're working on your venture full time. And then we have some really fun activities and things that we do as well. So we have a pitch-off that we do every year between our accelerator program and Yale's accelerator program. No pressure, but we've been doing this for this will be the 5th year, and we're 2 and 2. They won 2 years, we won 2 years, so not saying there's pressure, but we're going to win this year. Yeah, exactly. We've got to keep the giant trophy here. We will also do at the end day, we'll do a lessons learned presentation where you'll present to us, your teaching team and mentors, what you learned and what you're going to do as your next steps. And we'll have a showcase where we bring in a lot of people from the outside to be able to give you feedback, not in a pitch style, but in a way where they can give you general feedback on your venture. But this year, excitingly, we will be doing our first ever real demo day in the fall. So likely this will be at the end of September, but we haven't finalized the date. And for that occasion, we'll ask teams that have made it this far and are continuing to pursue their venture after the program, and to be able to stand up and pitch shortly to some friends and family who may be able to offer you some initial sort of friends and family funding to get you to that next step, and help you build more of a support network for yourself after you finish the program, so that you have the continuity to be able to continue to grow and flourish after you leave. So what we're looking for this is, again, at least 2 or more people, likely, full-time on your venture. We want to see that you demonstrate hustle. You work really hard. This program takes a lot. It takes a lot from people. We provide a ton of resources, and we want to make sure that you're somebody that's going to use those resources wisely and take advantage of all the resources that are at your fingertips here. We want to make sure that you're working on a meaningful, large-scale problem. So by meaning, it solves a real problem for people. So, and that by large scale, this program, we do have a bias towards ventures that have the potential to scale. We want to see that you're in love with the problem and that you believe you have a unique solution towards solving it. That you're bought into this and you have some of the experience or some experience in customer discovery to be able to sort of validate that you sort of get this method and this process. That's a really critical one. We want to make sure that we're all speaking the same language, and not everybody does. This isn't for everybody, and that's okay. There are other opportunities if you're not one of those people. We want to see that you have a proof of concept and prototype already. That you have the founding team with the core team members, almost all of them in place at this point, to be able to build and scale. That you've graduated, or at least one member of your team has graduated or is going to graduate in the fall. So that's a really critical one. It's okay if one person's still in school, if one person is graduating or is graduating this year. But in order to be able to continue this on after, really what it takes is full-time dedication, at least from one person who's pushing it forward. It's also okay, for the record, too, if you're at NYU full-time or graduating from NYU full-time and then somebody else has no NYU affiliation that's on a co-founder under a team, that's fine. That you're committed to working on your startup full-time. Certainly during the summer. That means no vacations during the period that you're supposed to be here. Your weekends are yours, but aside from that, we expect you to be here every single week without exception. And that's a hard rule. We don't make exceptions for that. And because it's only 9 weeks, and if you take off for a week or two, then what are you here for? And that you hope to be able to do this after you graduate from the program as well, after you finish. So we want people that are interested in doing this full time. That you have some clear milestones in place. It's okay if you don't know exactly what those are. We'll help you refine those and figure out what they might be for you. But you have a sense of what you want to get out of the program and where you want to be in 3 months, or at least by the end of the program. And we also have a preference for teams that we've been working with in some capacity. The reason for this is that we put a ton of time into this. Our whole team really dedicates themselves all summer towards supporting you, and it takes a ton of time and resources, and we want to make sure that you're the type of team that is going to appreciate those things, that plays well with other people. It's a cohort program, right? So you get points for helping each other, and we want to make sure that you're the type of team that's going to be supportive and working with other people well, too. That's just as important as working on your own. Otherwise, you wouldn't join a cohort-based accelerator program. And that you work really, really hard, and that you're resilient, and if something knocks you down, you're going to get back up again, even if it's tough. And if not, that you're open to that and you're going to push yourself, and you're the type of person that will do that. So for that reason, we do have a preference for teams that we've been working with a bit, so that we can get a sense of the stuff they're built from, if you will. And that they're a good fit for us, and frankly, that you like us too. Because you're going to spend a lot of time with us, and if you don't like us, then you should go somewhere else. So if you hate me after this presentation, don't apply, because you'll see me a lot. And that will be miserable for you. You won't really want to do that. So make sure that you leave and you don't completely hate my guts, if nothing else. Yeah. So both of these opportunities do really offer the opportunity to build community too. So you're going to work alongside a ton of other startups, perhaps some of the other people in this room, and be part of a community that hopefully can take you from this program all the way down in many years to come. So we see a number of the ventures that we're working with, that we worked with last year and from years prior, continue to help and support each other, give each other guidance and coaching and pitch in, and sometimes even hire each other for things, for side gigs all the time. It's really nice to have that community of people that you can rely on and trust, and continue to come back to. Not to mention all the mentors and people that you build along the way. And then you'll get to do it here. So you get 24/7 access here if you are from NYU, and if you are somebody that's not from NYU, you get 24/7 access if you're with the person that was from NYU. Interns do not get 24/7 access, so we just keep to regular hours for them. And you get to work with us here. So you've got some designated space to work. It's pretty quiet during the summer outside of the accelerator teams. We do have some outside people, but not that many. And you get access, so that means you get first priority access to the meeting rooms, to the prototyping facilities. Whoa. We feed you a lot of lunch, so from catering from Otto's Tacos and Chopped and lots of other places. You'll get unlimited coffee again, and lockers to keep your stuff if you wish. We don't want to have you staying here overnight, but that's where the limit kind of gets pushed. If you're working overnight, that's one thing. If you're just sleeping overnight, probably pushing the limits. So schedule and deadlines. So you guys are here. Obviously, we're down on the second milestone. So the applications are due on the 6th at 5 p.m. You can email me if you have questions about those. We'll be doing interviews after that. So we'll start the interviews right away on the 9th. Bonus points for people that apply early. I swear it'll be much easier to schedule stuff. You'll get your pick of which times you get to interview and days you get to interview if you apply a few days earlier, because we can get some of that scheduling done ahead of time. That would be much appreciated. And then we'll announce who from that process, after we do the interviews, will get accepted into the program by the 20th. Just one note, you don't have to be able to read this. I'm just going to point out something you'll see on the application. So if you go and when you're applying, you get to tick off which of the programs you're applying to. It's the same application, just for people's benefit, for all of the different options. So if you're applying for the sprint, the 2-week version, the 3-week version, or the summer accelerator, you can click off one or all three, up to you. The only difference is that you'll notice that if underneath some of the questions, just read them carefully. A few of them say you don't have to put this information in if you're not applying to Summer Launchpad. So we do require a prototype or demo or something if you're applying to Summer Launchpad, not for the sprint. So just make sure you're reading the fine print, otherwise we'll come back to you and ask you for it. So easier if you just look at it right the first time. So in other words, all the questions you'll have to answer for Summer Launchpad, but some of them you get to skip for the sprint because we recognize you just won't be as far along. So just a couple closing points of why consider this program. Hopefully I've vaguely sold you on what we're doing. You can definitely hope to learn, and we'll learn a ton from the process, mostly from your customers and from the cohort, sometimes from us, hopefully, too, so that we can greatly increase the likelihood of your success in your venture. To make starting a company less risky, because you can turn those hypotheses into facts. You'll meet a ton of mentors and advisors that are there dedicated for you to help you grow and to help you build your vision for what you want to see. You'll become hopefully part of a great community. Maybe have quite a bit of fun, hopefully, well, at least when we have drinks during the times you get to grill the different startup founders, but hopefully other times too. Hopefully you enjoy the process of building a startup. That can be tough at times. And a little free money isn't the worst thing in the world either. So with that, I'll take any questions that people may have. It's all the way in the back. Thanks. So if you can speak loudly for the question, or I'll just repeat the questions. How about that, just to make it a little easier?
I was just gonna ask, is there like a different criteria for the 2-week, if we're getting accepted into the 2-week start of sprint or the 3-week, or is it just?
It's more stage for where you're at. We are sector agnostic. We don't care what particular industry you're focused in at all. We do want to see that you're, especially for the summer Launchpad one, you're thinking more about a scaled venture, although ideally you can think, how do I scale the impact of what I'm doing for each side, but especially for the summer Launchpad. And for the summer Launchpad, you have to have more of your full well-rounded team in place. You should have a prototype in place and have done customer discovery and have gone out there and done a bit. So basically, you're farther along in the process. It's hard for me to, I don't know if your version of far along and my version of far along are exactly the same thing, so I can't tell you exactly what that means beyond those terms. And then also, for Summer Launchpad, it is designed more for teams that are graduating. Well, for the sprints, it's designed for teams that are still continuing on in school.
I think specifically with the sprint, with the 2 weeks versus 3 weeks, the optional 3rd week, is there a different criteria for those?
Nope, it's just up to you. It's more timing and preference. We are doing the 2-week version because we have some teams that are continuing on to Summer Launchpad for the last, so that we can fit in both of the programs effectively. But the more structured part of the program for the sprints is in the first 2 weeks. And then the last week is more helping you get to those next steps and build milestones to help you along your way for the sprint while the Summer Launchpad teams get started on their program.
What do you think are some of the traits or characteristics founders should have to make the most out of these programs?
So resilience. So if somebody knocks you down, if you're used to somebody always saying yes to you and you can't handle disappointment, it's probably not for you. Not that we're the ones saying no to you, so much as you'll often hear through the process of doing discovery that somebody thinks your baby's ugly, and you've got to have the resilience to be able to pick yourself up and push yourself along when that happens. It's hard, it takes practice. Somebody who works really hard for sure and has a good attitude about work, good work ethic. Things aren't going to come to you. You do have to go hustle them up for yourself and do things for yourself. So we provide you a lot of resources and support, but it's what you put into it at the end of the day too. And teams that are pretty well-rounded too. So don't pick people that are exactly like yourself. Ideally, you have a more well-rounded team. You're working with people that have slightly different backgrounds, but maybe are aligned on some of the values of what you think you might want to build. So if you're just doing this to get rich, and that's all you're doing it for, I promise there's way easier ways to get rich than doing a startup and way less risky ways. Go do that. But if you're doing this for other reasons, that you're in love with the problem and all of that, those are all really good characteristics we look for. And that you're coachable. That's the last one too. This is a program that you get a ton of, the main value really is the mentorship, coaching, and network that you get from that, if I'm being truly honest. Like the money helps, but that's fungible. The mentorship and coaching isn't. So yeah, gotta get, okay, cool. So back there?
Are you looking only for technological startups? Do you need to be a
Anything. Nope, doesn't have to be technological. So social ventures and nonprofits and things are fine. It doesn't matter. So we're looking at all different kinds of ventures. We're completely agnostic as to what type, if it's tech-oriented or not.
problem, but it's not necessarily the right one.
Honestly, we don't care. So tech is often a piece of scalable ventures, but it doesn't mean it has to be anything crazy. Like a website is tech, right? So if you're selling something through e-commerce, that's tech, but that's something that you don't have to have crazy skills in programming and database management to be able to do. Yeah.
Real quick, because I only have 3 minutes. Do you pair up individuals if they don't have a team?
Nope. So you've got to find your own team. So I definitely advise you to go run around and hustle, talk to as many people as possible, go to hackathons, go to events where you think you might find somebody that doesn't have the skills you have, because we don't. Yeah. So it's like getting married. You can introduce your friends and hope that they like each other, but arranged marriages have weird outcomes. Yeah. So we don't do that.
So the application and interview, do you do as a team if you already have one? Or?
Absolutely. Yeah. So only one application per team. And then one last question, and then I can take other questions out there so we can get out of here for Sarah.
Do all members of the team have to come for the thing?
At least 2 or more of the core members of the team have to participate. If you have a really large team, we like to have at least a majority of the decision-making power there. But the more, the better. It's hard to participate and have all these learnings without having a way to be able to at least share what you're learning with other people. Better if you can all participate, but if you can't, then at least sort of the majority of the team needs to be there. Yep. And I'll take the last question outside because we got to get out of here, but I'll share the presentation with you.